don't pick that life picked you. Welcome to Sit Down News, and before I begin, I'd like to mention our sponsor. Ratchet is a clothing company from the UK started by a young man with a vision, a dream, and determination. They have various prints and styles for men, women, and children. I'll include a link to their website down below in the description for this video. Ernie grew up on First Avenue in Manhattan. He had two brothers. One was an associate to the Colombo family, and the other brother, who I met, was retired from the NYPD. One day while at the beach, Ernie met a young woman named Shannon, who everyone called Sandy. The two of them became a couple, and he found out her last name was Conley. She had a stepfather who she called Neil, but he was in prison at the time. According to Ernie, being he was from Manhattan, he knew exactly who she was talking about, Neil Della Croce, the Gambino family underboss. Shannon eventually went to visit her stepfather and told him about Ernie. He told her he would like to meet with the young man. Eventually, Ernie joined her on a visit, and after made several visits to sit and talk with him. In time, Ernie started going to Neil's social club, the Ravenite in Manhattan. John Gotti and his crew was always there. Eventually, Ernie became an associate of Angelo Ruggiero. Once released, Neil was back in business at the Ravenite. As for Ernie, dating the underboss's daughter did have its benefits. Now that Ernie was associated to the Gambino family, he decided to create a crew of his own, and they moved around Manhattan terrorizing people under the Gambino name. One of the guys in Ernie's crew was a martial artist named Michael Scarola, who would refer to Ernie as his uncle. Ernie and his crew set up a casino in an apartment on First Avenue. The owner got wind of what was going on and wanted to evict them, but instead of leaving, they told him he now had to pay them $50,000 a month. Ernie and the crew moved their casino to an apartment on East 61st Street. They decided they would need an additional 3 apartments in the building, but only wanted to pay $100 a month for each one. The landlord, a woman, refused, so they threatened her and her family. Back then, apartments in the city were rented for $1,500 a month. By now, Ernie and Shannon were married with 2 daughters and living in Neil's house on Staten Island. By December of 1985, 2 major events would take place. First, Neil Della Croce would pass away of cancer. And just 2 weeks later, John Gotti made a power play by carrying out a hit on Gambino boss Paul Castellano. Unfortunately, the Castellano hit was not the only Gotti power play. While visiting Della Croce on his deathbed, he began hitting on Ernie's wife, Shannon. Not only was it breaking a Cosa Nostra rule, it was disrespectful to Neil, your underboss. He shelved Angelo Ruggiero, his childhood friend, for breaking a rule in that life. Meanwhile, he was breaking the rules himself. By 1988, the Grillo crew was shaking down drug dealers and the bar that they stood in Queens called the Cork and Bottle. A neighborhood guy named Kevin Hogan, who was a regular at the bar, started to interfere in their business. Michael Scarola told Ernie about the trouble with the guy Kevin, so Ernie set up a meeting with him. According to reports, Ernie was spotted walking into a building with a guy, but leaving by himself. The police found Kevin Hogan's body floating in the East River. He had one of his eyes blown out. During the time of the murder, Ernie's crew began using a Getty gas station that used to be on 60th and 1st as a parking lot for a valet service. Of course, they never asked the owner for permission. He told me that the owner of the gas station was out with his family one night. It was late, and he decided to drive past his gas station. When he drives past, he sees the whole place lit up. It had portable lights, and there was cars parked everywhere. By November of 1988, the Grillo crew was indicted on 51 counts, including the murder. John Gotti continued to secretly see Ernie's wife, even to the point of having a daughter with her. Although Ernie's marriage to Shannon was obviously over, he raised that daughter as his own. By 1989, Ernie and his crew were all arrested, with the exception of Joey Giordano, who became a fugitive. He was the nephew of John Jack the Actor Giordano, a Gambino captain. But when law enforcement caught up with Giordano, he flipped, giving Ernie and the crew up. Ernie pled guilty to enterprise corruption and wound up doing about 12 years in the state. Once Ernie was released, he was inducted into the Gambino family. As for John Gotti, he was no longer around. He was arrested in 1990, and he died by 2002. In 2008, Ernie and several members of the Gambino family were all arrested for racketeering. Ernie was charged with shaking down NASCAR, who planned to construct a racetrack on Staten Island. The Gambino family was trying to take control over the contractors that would perform that work. After Ernie was released and his parole ended, he got in touch with me. So when I first started staying around with Ernie again, I had heard that he got shelved. At the time, I didn't know why. He was supposed to come to a party we were having, and the night before the party, he calls me up. It's about 10:30 at night. He asked if I could meet him at a Dominican restaurant in Staten Island. I told him I would meet with him. By the time I get to the restaurant, it's like 11 o'clock at night. He's sitting there with a baseball hat and sunglasses on. So when I sit down, I take a closer look at him, and I see under the sunglasses he has a scrape on his face. I said, Ernie, what happened? He takes the sunglasses up, and I see he's all banged up. He's got a gash from his forehead all the way down to his cheek. So the first thing I said to him, I said, Ernie, what do you want to do? He stopped, he looked at me for a second, he said, listen, I got to leave this alone. So what happened is that being that Ernie was on the shelf, he was still making a lot of money. The Gambino family wanted that money. Ernie didn't want to turn it over. They sent a couple of guys to his cousin's tow shop in the Bronx where he was staying, and they caught him outside. Neither Ernie or I spoke about what happened to him ever again. He healed up pretty good. We spent a lot of time together, mostly eating and laughing. One day we took a ride to one of the houses he was renting. At the time, he had a kitchen and bathroom renovation company, and he had a bunch of Mexicans that was working for him. So we get to the house, and I start to notice some of the same guys, they're living there. So I said to him, Ernie, you think you're slick. You pay these guys, and then they give it right back to you in rent money. So he just turned around and he laughed at me. So we go inside. He has the place all split up into different little mini apartments. So I said, Ernie, how many people you got living here? He says, hey, I want to show you something. Look at this. We go in the hallway, and there's like a half of a door, like to a crawl space. He says, open it up, take a look. So I open up the door, and there's a mattress in there. I said, what the fuck is this? He says, I get $400 a month from that. It was Mickey Boy Paradiso who ultimately helped Ernie get off the shelf. Ernie was placed in his crew, and not long after became Mickey Boy's acting captain. Ernie became the captain of that crew once Mickey Boy was selected to be the family's consigliere. A few days before I was going to be inducted, I called up Ernie and told him I needed to see him. It was important. So when I pulled up to his house, he was waiting outside. He jumped in my car and gave me directions to another house that he was renting. We left our phones in the car and we got out. We went to the back of the house, and there were cellar doors, and he opened them up. They were dirty, and we went down into the basement of the house. And then towards the back of the basement, there was another door. He opened it up, and we went down these rickety stairs down to a sub-basement. It was damp down there. There was a light bulb swinging above our heads. Drops of water or whatever it was dripping on us. God only knows what was crawling on us down there. So he turns to me and he says, okay, what's up? I said, are you fucking crazy? What the fuck are we doing down here? He was hysterical laughing. He said, all right, come on, let's go back upstairs. I wanted to get his opinion. I knew that he's seen all the treachery that was going on in her life, and we spoke about it for a little while. But then he added that I should consider it an honor. The Gambinos, who are presently led by a Sicilian faction, began utilizing Ernie as a liaison to Sicilian Cosa Nostra. He was even picked up on a surveillance picture in his arrival in Sicily for meetings with Cosa Nostra members. Since the death of Gambino boss Frank Cali, Ernie seems to be the go-between with the Sicilians. The octopus has 8 suction cup tentacles that can tightly take hold of its prey. It injects a paralyzing poison into it and then squirts black ink to escape undetected. This is what many compare Sicilian Cosa Nostra to. And it's by no coincidence Ernie decided to tattoo an octopus on his arm. One day I remember sitting with Blaze Carrazzo and Ernie's name came up, and Blaze turned around and said to me, you watch, this guy one day is going to be our boss. Hope you enjoyed the story. If you would like to subscribe to this channel, you could do so down below. If you would like to subscribe to my other channel, Unlimited Substance Podcast, I'll add a link in the description for this video.